Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Community Connections. I'm Robert Day, CEO of Patrick Henry Family Services, and I'm here with my co-host, Chief Program Officer Claudia Fletcher.
Good morning, Robert J. Day.
We were just talking about maybe the best part of the show is not recorded, is what we talk about before the show starts and what we talk about after. But we're afraid we would need a mute button.
That's not necessarily true. You're afraid I would need a mute button.
Okay, yes, if we're going to be specific, yes. I was willing to take some of the blame for that, but hey, we got a pretty cool guest here today.
Very cool.
That we've known for a long time, does some amazing work, really has the passion and the heart for this work, skin in the game, as we would say. Why don't you introduce us to our guest?
All right, so we have Ray Moore here with us today, and Ray's been a part of what we do at Patrick Henry from afar for several years now, and so he is here on behalf of 127 Place, which is a nonprofit that he and his wife started a long time ago, and so we're going to hear all about his personal why. I think you'll be surprised to find out lots of things about Ray. So have you just tell a little bit about yourself and why you're involved in this space and why it matters to you.
Well, I was a teacher for 43 years, and I've been very fortunate to have two callings in my life, the first being teaching, and the second being serving vulnerable children. So my wife Kelly and I started a ministry at our church, at Fellowship Community Church in Salem, called the Empty Chair Ministry. Is there an empty chair at your table for one of God's vulnerable children? And, you know, it took us a while to get some traction. But finally, we did begin to get traction. People started fostering and adopting, and that's what we were calling people to. And as they saw other people doing it, the disinhibition, set in, and other people thought, we can do this. And at one time, we were serving 100 fostering and adopting families in our church, and outside our church as well. But when we went to other churches and asked them into this space, it was kind of a tough ask, asking people, kind of on a cold call, hey, want to bring some kids into your home? You don't run into many Claudia Fletchers out there.
No, not many.
So, then we asked Robert Day to come and speak at our church, and we got introduced to Patrick Henry Family Services. What an awesome, awesome organization with just people who are very, very passionate about serving children. So, we started into that, and at one point I was the presence of Safe Families for Children in Roanoke, and then Claudia started telling me something about this care portal thing, and that was a game changer. At first I thought it was a weak sister because you don't have to bring people into your home and that sort of thing, but one of our first requests was a social worker in Roanoke City wrote, I'm working with a family of 2 with 1 on the way, and they're taking in a sibling set of 5 to keep them out of foster care. Oh my gosh, they needed everything. And but the cool thing was those kids, 4 of them, were with the kinship caregiver for a year, and then went back to their biological family. So, I realized very quickly that Care Portal can be extremely impactful. How many people can you keep out of foster care by providing a bed, by providing, a stove or whatever? So it's
and that was your first one. That was your first one.
One of the first. Yeah.
One of the first. That's amazing. Yep. Wow.
So backing up a little bit, whenever you get started, I have a hard time interrupting you. So
I noticed you're watching your watch.
I have to make sure we get it all in. Yeah. But why vulnerable children? Like, what about your life and your wife's life even led you to this place? And personally, what has that meant for you?
Well, for one thing, this will probably come out somewhere along the line, but Kelly's significantly younger than I am.
Because you're significantly old.
That's true. It's absolutely true. I'm 73 years old.
Wow.
And anyway, so Kelly and I were both teachers at Salem High School, and neither of us was married. And we just kind of started hanging out because we had a lot in common. Our Christianity, missional thinking, and that sort of thing. We were both English teachers. So, I tried to set her up with my son, but she wasn't interested. So take that, Seth. Anyway, we just did a lot of things together, go to baseball games, and, with other people and that sort of thing. And somewhere along the line, she said, what do you think the chances are we'd get married? And I said, about 10%. And she kept asking that question. Really? And, so once we started thinking about really getting married, the question was, what were we going to do about children? And, I was old. And, so.
And that was a long time ago.
Yeah, that was. I was 57 years old when we got married. And, we almost immediately started into adoption. We have 4 adopted kids. One of them was adopted out of Virginia. The others were adopted internationally. We had no idea what we were getting into. We had no idea about trauma and the fact that I'd had 3 kids who were relatively successful. I thought I knew what I was doing, and therefore I didn't need to learn anything. And I found out that I usually learn something when somebody hits me upside the head with a 2x4, and that just kept happening. So sooner or later, I started listening to trauma things and changing the direction. So that's where we, began with all of this.
And that led you to Empty Chair, led you to 127th Place.
Correct. And, as I mentioned, it was hard for us to get other churches to come into this. And that's because we were asking people to foster and adopt. But, when Care Portal came along, the bar is extremely low. A whole church, all they're asked to do is to respond to 1 request per month. And, we hope that they might get in there a little bit. By the way, I was looking at my church the other day, and this isn't to brag about my church, it's to brag about the point person there. They had 14 requests they're working on at one time. Wow. And that's, wow.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Is Empty Chair still going?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yep. The pandemic did have an impact and that sort of thing, but yep.
Still taking care of kids, fostering, adopting kids?
People were still fostering and adopting even during the pandemic, which I thought was very courageous. To tell you the truth, I'm a little disappointed with the church in general. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
No, I think you can.
But, there are people in the church who are doing amazing stuff. And that's part of the joy that I have, being able to rub shoulders with people who are willing to pick up their cross and follow Jesus.
I was waiting for the but.
There's no but. No but. I mean, that's the joy. Well, if you want me to give you a but, not everybody's doing that.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people aren't doing that.
Right. And you're preaching to the choir because we share similar frustrations there. And I think that the piece that bothers me the most is the joy that people are missing out on. It's there's nothing like having a relationship with somebody who started because they needed something when they were in crisis and is now a friend or somebody who calls you mom, or somebody who you're their person. And yeah, it's messy. It's very messy. But the people who are saying, no, that's not for me, are people who are missing out on that joy. And that is where what compels me to continue to invite people into the space. Not because I want something from you, not because I want you to give our program something but because I want this for you. I want you to be able to experience what I've experienced. And I know you feel the same way.
Well, I think the thing that people really miss is Jesus. If you don't get into the difficult, you don't see the miracles. You don't get to see what God is doing and how he's orchestrating, bringing all these different pieces together. So, it really is inviting people into a deeper and more meaningful relationship with Jesus.
So God's in the hard places. If you want to find him,
That's right.
that's where you got to go.
Yep.
Look, huh?
Indeed.
Yeah, I keep saying that there's nothing in Scripture where Jesus or God said, "Have fun and be safe," right?
That's right.
It was about carrying a cross, and it was about the tough stuff. But that's where I think even Matthew 25 and talks about how if you do it for the least of these, you're doing it for me. So sometimes I pick a request at Christmas time, and I change it up where Mary's expecting a baby, and she doesn't have anything for him. She needs a crib, and she needs this, and rewrite a care portal request to help people realize that what we're doing for these people, we're doing for Jesus, and we can learn a lot from them.
There was a grandmother who I found out needed a couch, and so we went out and delivered a couch. We carried it into her double wide and set it down in the living room. And I turned to walk out of the room, and the youngest granddaughter said, "Grandma, why are people so good to us?" And I turned around and just said, "It's because you're Jesus. The Bible says that if we help others, we're helping him." So.
And that gives us an opportunity to get into that conversation.
Yep.
I also think we've talked about this, Ray, many times. Just the idea that a lot of times churches really want to help. They want to. I always say my passion is helping kids that age out of foster care without a connection. But I can't go to Walmart and get on the PA and say, "Anybody in the building age out of foster care and want a connection, come to the front," right? How do you find these people? And now they come into my inbox. Every day I get to find out where these people are and that are needing me and needing Jesus. And but I do want to say, and this is kind of turning into an interview of me, and that's not ever how it's supposed to go. But I just want to make sure people understand, and I know you've experienced this, that just because somebody is a family in poverty or a family in crisis does not mean that they don't know Jesus. And it doesn't mean sometimes that they know Jesus maybe better than I do. Have you run into that at all?
I quite a bit. Just speaking of that same grandmother, she's taught me so much about courage, and her husband and she decided to bring their three granddaughters into their home because of the meth use of their son and daughter-in-law, and they did that in August of 2020. And in January of 2021, he died of COVID, and he was the main breadwinner. So, in July of 2021, she ran out of money. And, if you look at her Facebook page, there are two things that you'll find out. One is how much she loves her granddaughters and how much she misses her husband. And, just the faith that she's had in carrying it out, this mission that she's on.
Wow.
So we're going to shift gears in a little bit and talk a little bit more about 127 Place and exactly what all you're doing around the world and locally. But before that, we have a commercial, and I understand that you're in it, so that should be interesting.
I think you got a cameo in it, don't you? Let's do it.
Of course, as you know, March of 2020 changed our world.
Everything closed down, and people was in the house. We lost a lot of members, and a lot of churches lost a lot of members.
Somebody walks out of the back of the church on a Sunday morning and says, "Hey, pray for us." In Bedford, we have 400 plus children in child protective services. To which I said, "Excuse me, what did you say?" It was a ton of bricks to my heart.
We're in the forest area, and you think about the idea of forest, and it's like there's just this general idea of affluence, like the people who are here are well off. And literally we're driving a couple miles away from the church, and we're seeing, those needs that are so great.
With Care Portal, we're able to access needs in our community that we were previously unaware of.
Our church will say the Great Commission, and the Great Commission tells us to go. The Lord, through Care Portal, is teaching our church to implement that.
the heartbeat of our church is we want to see the family restored. And this does that in a very practical way to meet that need, to restore those families.
Our families, the Care Portal responder families, they're asking us, what are you doing? It gives us an opportunity to talk about what the church is and what it should be doing.
I was a little skeptical about one more thing that I would need to try to do as a pastor. Care Portal gives us the opportunity to do something locally, to make a connection with our neighbors, people we know or now know, that goes beyond a transaction.
Ministry runs on the rails of relationships, and Care Portal has been that vehicle to give us relationships to people within the community.
The families that we're serving care about the other people in their community too and want to contribute back.
And then, sure, I might have that in my house, or I might be able to help transport a family or take a meal to somebody.
So delivering stuff give us an opportunity to share the gospel with people.
They're not just meeting the need, they're meeting so much more and establishing relationships with families that are going to cause transformation.
It's been really neat to see how those relationships develop just naturally. You know, that's not something that we can plan for and that we can script. It just happens because our people are cognizant and aware of what we have, the talents and giftings that we have in our congregation. It's really cool to see that work.
Literally, I need a 2-minute conversation with somebody to tell them about Care Portal to be like, really? Like that exists?
The process Care Portal does, they bring us needs, so it takes the burden off of us. And instead of having a critical eyes, we have our eyes to want to help.
People are messy. Sit in any group of people and ask them for prayer requests and just listen, and you're going to hear messy. And we like sheep have gone astray. And so everybody's got stuff that they're dealing with.
God is teaching us to go after the broken. And it's not going to be easy all the time, and it might be a little bit messy, but God uses the hard stuff to make us soft so that we can be transformed into the people that He wants us to be.
Our desire to co-labor with other like-minded people, to dive into a place that we know that the heart of God is all about.
It's exciting for me to stand in front of my congregation on a Sunday morning and say, guess how many needs we've met since we began Care Portal? And they try to guess, and they never guess high enough.
I think it's a great blessing and the church's responsibility to be able to say, look, hey, if this is all you need, we've got that.
I would say to pastors, don't be afraid that this is going to place a whole extra layer of burden on you. If your core purpose as a congregation is to be focused on what Jesus wants us to do, this is a very practical way to do that.
Start small, and if the Lord show you result, continue and go as far as He wants you to go.
This brings all of those churches together to say, hey, we're going to partner. So even if you can only do small needs, there are other churches who can come alongside you. So there's so many opportunities to get involved.
It just became a no-brainer for us.
If you've ever wondered what church should look like, this is what it's like. This is what Jesus would do. This is what we're doing.
I don't know about you, but that's pretty amazing stuff, right? Pretty amazing stuff. I saw a cameo. Was that your husband on there?
I don't think he would want anyone to know that.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, that was him.
Did you notice something about our guest?
Yeah, he's wearing the same vest as he was wearing in the video.
And I think the same shirt.
No, it's not the same shirt.
No,
I studied it.
but
pretty.
the same vest. Do we need to put a Care Portal request?
Maybe.
I kind of see you as one of those frugal types, right?
I don't know.
No?
It just, I don't know what to say about that.
It's just chance that he grabbed
Just
the same
chance.
vest, I think.
All right. Well, that's pretty cool. One question before we talk about the ministry that you started, 127 Place. Give us an update on kind of the foster care space over in Roanoke City and Roanoke County. What kind of challenges are they having over there?
Roanoke City has the largest foster care population in the state by far. And when you think about the fact that the population of Roanoke is around 90,000, Virginia Beach is about 450,000, Richmond 223,000, Fairfax County 1.4 million, the idea that that's the way it is, it's pretty amazing. A lot of people ask me why, and my theory is I've actually heard that pastors in outlying counties, when a family comes and they're homeless or whatever, they give them a bus ticket to Roanoke. And Roanoke really does have some very good resources. The Roanoke City Rescue Mission, Total Action for Progress, the fact that Carillion is there. Actually there was a social worker who told me that if you Google the best place in the country to be homeless, that Roanoke is listed there.
Is that right? Wow.
So, people know about that, and so they come, and it's a great opportunity to help a lot of people. And they're from all sorts of places. They're from the Ivory Coast. They're from Afghanistan. They're from Texas.
Far
and
away
Georgia,
places.
and places like that.
Yeah.
We're serving a lot of people who live in motels because they can't get housing and that sort of thing.
So the whole world's showing up right there. Yep. You don't have to go to the whole world. God's sending the whole world to you, huh?
This is the mission field,
How about that?
and it's in our backyard and our communities.
So tell us about 127 Place. What was behind that?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, when we tried to get other churches to join in, and that's not to say other churches didn't have people who fostered and adopted. It's just that they weren't interested in starting a ministry dedicated to that. And anyway, so we wanted to actually move outside of our church, not to leave our church, but we were afraid that some churches might not want to identify with a particular large church. So we wanted to be the James 127 place in the Roanoke Valley, where we would bring people together, churches together, and encourage them, educate them, and exhort them to move into this space.
So if a family in a church that doesn't have a specific ministry to support their work, they can find that support from you.
Right. We've offered support groups through men's and women's coffee nights. We offer trauma competent caregiving classes, and lots of people just reach out and they say, I've been thinking about this fostering thing, and I need to talk to somebody who's actually done it. So we try to provide that sort of thing as well.
Yeah. I would say there's a lot of churches that are not foster care friendly, all right? They're not trauma informed, trauma trained, so they don't know what to do when all these kids kind of start showing up, and it's kind of a scary space. I will never forget a conversation I had after I presented at a church, and mom came up with a whole bunch of kids in tow that were obviously not all hers by birth, right? You kind of identify foster adoptive families pretty quick. And she was in tears because the church just the week before had asked her to stop bringing the kids to Sunday school.
That actually happened in a previous church that I went to. The pastor started bringing some of these kids from the local high school, and they weren't like our kids.
Yeah.
And they not always use the best language and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
And it's a learning curve in being a Christian.
Yeah, for sure. So do you find yourself with any opportunities to go back to maybe those congregations and offer some type of support that might help them say yes to some of these families?
Well, we do have the resources that I said before, and I don't. I'm coming up dry on that.
No, that's right, but you're. It's still pretty much designed for the families who are raising their hand to that, whether they have that kind of support in that local church, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So I know you guys have done conferences in the past. What other kind of trainings or support or mentorship opportunities are available?
Well, when people come and ask us, they say that they want to get involved in this. A lot of times they don't know what they're saying they want to get involved in. So we want to be realistic, tell them that they're going to need to, just go through the fire like we did and learn that you can't raise a child from trauma the same way that you raise a child that's growing up in a nurturing home and that sort of thing. And actually, after the fact, I look back on my parenting as with my biological kids, and I now realize I should have parented them the same way that you would parent children from trauma.
Yeah, I think that's true for all of us, right?
Yep.
And I think grandparents today, or even that older generation, once they get aware of that, they go, "Oh, I wish I'd have done it differently." And and it's not that these kids were abused or neglected, but when you understand that, let's look at the behavior as not what's wrong with you, but what has happened, or how can we approach this in a softer, graceful manner, right?
Well, and one other thing, just that I ran across is that the one factor that determines whether a foster child or an adopted child feels like they belong in a family is the grandparents. So that's
I didn't realize that, but
Makes sense.
yeah, then you're truly a part of the family.
Yep. And a lot of times, the extended family doesn't understand, and they're not always the most encouraging. But those that are a real blessing to the children.
Kind of makes you think when I've got my youngest daughter is in a relationship, thinking about getting married, right? So we always tell her that you're not just marrying him, you're going to marry the family. And so there's got to be this kind of overall acceptance on both sides, right? Never thought about that in terms of an adoptive child. The whole family should be part of this decision, right? The siblings, the grandparents, aunts and uncles, so they do feel that way.
Well, it's a big deal because if you talk to foster and adoptive families, almost all of them have stories about family members who don't get it and who are very judgmental and not hurtful.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Tell me what would be your ideal scenario, your dream, your goal for 127 Place. What, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it and have a resource or an outcome or a policy, or what would make the biggest game-changing kind of event happen for you guys over there?
I think that if the church embraced James 1:27, pure and acceptable religion to God the Father is this, to care for orphans and widows in their distress and to keep yourself from being polluted by the world, that would be the huge game changer. It's sometimes I wonder, who is God? God is love. And, maybe I'm going to go off here a little bit.
Go ahead.
Well, who is it that we're called to hate? Are we called to hate the Democrats? Are we called to hate, the Hispanics, the blacks, No. The song says, and the Bible says, they will know we are Christians by our love. And I think that a lot of people outside the church are seeing something very different than that. And I think we need to realize that, the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. And if we're going to be Christ followers, then I think we've got some soul searching to do.
I was expecting I was waiting for some kind of strategic something, right? That would be just really, we could grab hold of it and produce. And here you come up with love.
Well, I could use some money too. But,
yeah, I'm sure you could. But in the end, you're absolutely right. If we just would, of the church, if we would just change our attitude, right?
Oh my gosh.
Changes everything.
You know, the church is an army. I mean, it's a huge army, but so much of it is sleeping.
So here's your chance, Ray, to ask for some money if that's what you need at 127. What is it that you need, and how can they get in touch with you?
Well, you can get in touch with me at ray@127place.org. And as far as money's concerned, you can go to 127place/support. And what your money's going to do, it's going to help a 25-year-old mother with 2 kids. She's pregnant. She needs housing because she's living in a motel, and she's doing DoorDash so that she doesn't have to find child care. And we can get her into a decent home in a safe place. And the housing for these people is it's hard to get, and when they do get it, it's not nice, and it's a lot of times in a dangerous place. Yeah. So there's just a lot of need, and if you want to help with that, 127 Place is a place to do it. And we have no paid employees, so
there you go.
100% of
100%.
There you go.
You know what the world needs more? They need more of Ray Moore's kind of thinking about things, right? It really does come down to just love your neighbor, right?
Yep.
I've really appreciated this. Haven't you enjoyed it today? We knew it would be a good time.
We did.
All right, folks, you heard it from Ray, 127place.org. You can contact, you can give money, and it's a great time of year to be doing that, okay? So you have our endorsement and our encouragement to do that if you have the means to. Hope to see you next Thursday at Community Connections.
Nobody gets to choose their family. If a person is fortunate enough to be born into a healthy family, then life can be much like floating down a smooth, gentle river in the summertime. But an unhealthy family is like a dangerous river, filled with rocks, debris, and fast-moving water. This river swiftly leads to the steep waterfall of adulthood, tragically forming a new river of dysfunction. Even if you aren't born into an unhealthy river, there are many streams that cause a person to get there. But there is only one way to get out, and that is through a meaningful relationship. Across our region, there are many agencies, churches, and families who are devoted to helping children escape from unhealthy rivers. Some feel their role is to wade in and rescue children. They foster, adopt, or provide safe families. Others stand by the river and support the rescuers by providing what they need. Still, others are upstream and stand in the gap to keep children from ending up in the negative situations. At Patrick Henry Family Services, we see ourselves as having an additional role. We are running up and down the shores of the unhealthy river, screaming, "Can't you see the children in the water? You have to do something." Vision 30 is a 10-year initiative. By 2030, we envision a region where all children are safe in their own family, or with caregivers who are supported by a local faith community. So, where do you stand at the river? Are you upstream, keeping families together and strong by standing in the gap? Are you in the river, directly impacting children? Are you on the shore, providing support for the brave folks who have entered the river? Or are you just passing by without noticing? No matter who you are, come down to the river with us. Let us help you find your place. Not only will lives be changed, but you will never be the same.